The latest Trump loyalist to have found out, after effing around, is Peter Navarro, who early on Thursday was sentenced to a federal prison. Former White House aide to Donald Trump was convicted last year in a pair of contempt of Congress charges for refusing to comply with the January 6th committee subpoena. He was sentenced to 4 months in a federal prison by U.S. District Judge Amit Mehta. That in addition to paying a $9,500 fine. In his ruling, Mehta slammed Navarro's refusal to testify in front of Congress, saying this, quote, "They had a job to do, and you made it harder." It's really that simple. It is. Now, of course, that's the point. All of Trump's loyal members were expected to do just that, to basically gum up the wheels of justice, to ensure that Trump never has to face it. All right? To delay, to make sure that Trump can hang on to power, or that he can last long enough to get back into power and then avoid all repercussions. So that's it. Now, Navarro had claimed that I have executive privilege. Well, okay, but none of what happened on January 6th was part of the official duties of the executive branch. So it doesn't really apply. And neither is refusing, of course, to answer a question about what happened that day during an official congressional investigation. That's what he did. Executive privilege doesn't really cover that. Here's what he told Mehta, though. "I just want you to know that when I received that congressional subpoena, you acknowledged correctly that I had an honest belief that privilege had been invoked, and I was torn." And we'll see how torn he was, right? He added, "The minute the violence erupted on Capitol Hill was one of the worst days of my life." Yes and no. So I think that the minute that the election was certified by Mike Pence, that was the point in which it became one of the worst days of his life. Why? Because it meant that Donald Trump and those who wanted to see him restored to power lost. And there was no winning at that point. There was no takeover. There was no stealing of the election. It just wasn't going to happen. Sadly, though, this case is not about that. It's about him skipping out on, having to testify to Congress. Now, prosecutors had pushed hard for Navarro to spend at least 6 months in prison. He got 4, so pretty close, arguing that he had thumbed his nose at congressional authority and deployed a bad-faith strategy to avoid answering questions about what preceded the 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol. In the sentencing memo, prosecutors said that Navarro chose allegiance to the former president over the rule of law. But of course, and that's what they're expected to choose. Furthermore, Mehta slammed Navarro's attorneys for arguing that their client had since accepted responsibility for his crime, something that they said should allow him to receive credit that would shorten his sentence. No credit for you. None. In fact, Mehta said, "The idea that somehow he's exhibited clear demonstration of acceptance is sort of hard to reconcile with the plain reading of those words." He noted that Navarro had been recently referring to the case as nothing more than political prosecution. Oh, but he totally accepted his, responsibility for his crime, and also wanted to let everybody know that this is political persecution. That's what it is, yes. Obviously, the jury didn't buy any of those arguments. Navarro was ordered to testify at the January 6th committee. He refused. That's illegal. And the jury's like, that's pretty clear. There's no ambiguity about this one. All right. No, you got it. He's guilty. The defendant, this is prosecutor John Crabb Jr., said on Thursday, the defendant simply defied Congress. The defendant brazenly defied Congress. It's important for the court to make clear that people cannot defy Congress and ignore their legal obligations. That's pretty simple. Now, of course, what also hurt Navarro's case is the fact that he was willing to talk about January 6th everywhere except in front of Congress. Well, that's weird. Now, of course, Crabb Jr. said this: "You're more than happy to talk to the press about what you did, write about it in your book, but not go up to the Hill and talk to Congress, who's investigating what happened that day." Well, I think there's a simple explanation for that one. in order to talk to Congress, you would have to do it under oath. And if you lie under oath, well, you can get in trouble for that. That's perjury. By the way, you don't even have to be under oath to, get in trouble for making false statements to Congress. That said, does it happen often? No. Generally, Congress doesn't go after somebody for making false statements. It's kind of hard to prove in a way, but it does happen. In fact, the last person charged with lying to Congress happened to have been former Trump fixer and lawyer Michael Cohen. Now, he's a critic of Trump now, but still got in trouble because he lied to Congress. I wonder, maybe that's why he didn't want to show up. That's why he didn't want to have to go in front of Congress and follow that subpoena and answer questions about what happened on the lead up to January 6th. And maybe that's why Trump didn't want him there either. Okay? All of this comes back to, of course, Donald Trump and making sure that everyone around him deals with consequences of Trump's actions so that he doesn't have to.